Chapter 41. Shout louder, you are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Luo Chenxi widened her eyes in surprise as she simply could not believe what she had just heard. She was certain that this was a fake Mui Chen. Could Mui Chen have an elder brother or a younger brother that looked exactly the same as him and was in disguise? When Mui Chen looked fearlessly at her, Luo Chenxi was at a loss of what to do all of a sudden. Meanwhile, through the corner of her eyes, she saw a familiar silhouette. It was Zhuo Xiaoqing. She was right about having heard Zhuo Xiaoqing's voice earlier. Even though Zhuo Xiaoqing was still standing at the entrance of SL Holdings and was still quite some distance from them, she would only need to take a few steps forward to see them easily. Luo Chenxi bit her lip. I designed a brooch when I was at SL Holdings earlier and it was used in Chief Sheng's fashion show. It was my first time showcasing my work in a huge fashion show like this. As a result, Chief Sheng gave the brooch to me as a keepsake. I made the brooch and Chief Sheng was only guiding me as a junior designer. He had no other intention, she explained swiftly. Then, she buried her head in Mui Chen's shoulder in an attempt to hide her face. Upon listening to her explanation, Mui Chen recalled how the duo was standing quite far apart when they were talking at the time, so he had no other choice but to believe her. However, he had yet to completely calm down from the rage. The members of the Sheng family never did anything that did not benefit themselves. Therefore, he refused to believe that Sheng Yu would sacrifice his time to guide a junior whom he had just gotten acquainted with today for no reason. However, Luo Chenxi suddenly took it upon herself to hold him by his neck and bury her face into his chest. The wicked woman was snuggling softly against his body in such a submissive posture. Every breath he took was filled with the faint scent of her body. Mui Chen's entire body stiffened for a moment. He suddenly exerted strength on his arm and held her even tighter before he began walking toward the sports car. She wriggled and pounded his shoulder. Mui Chen, you broke your promise. I thought you say that you're going to let go of me after I explain myself. You liar. He pulled back his lips in displeasure. You may shout louder if you're not afraid that someone might hear you. Luo Chenxi's body stiffened at once. She did not make a sound anymore. Instead, she grabbed his blazer to shield her face. At the same time, she was rubbing herself against Mui Chen's neat shirt sourly. Since he did not care about her image, she decided that she would do the same as revenge too. For a fine gentleman like Mui Chen, who was perfect from head to toe, it would certainly cause him great uneasiness to be wearing a shirt as wrinkled as a pickled vegetable. The wicked woman in his arms was snuggling and rubbing herself against him like a coquettish little kitten. The temperature was rising exponentially in Mui Chen's body, which had already slightly stiffened. He could not refrain from clenching his teeth. This wicked woman was doing this on purpose, was she not? Could she be trying to seduce him because she felt guilty for her actions and was hoping that he would forgive her? Could she be assuming that he would fall for such an inferior attempt of honey trapping? He pinned the disobedient woman down. Behave yourself and stop moving. Why should I listen to you? Luo Chenxi chuckled upon realizing how furious he was. He deserved it. She wanted to see how this man could continue to be so opinionated. Stop moving. Otherwise. Otherwise what? Luo Chenxi raised her tiny chin in defiance. Mui Chen's pitch. Black eyes that were glimmering with soul-stirring radiance swept past her bright and enchanting cat eyes to her straight little nose before landing on her lips slowly. She felt chills run down her entire body. He was too overbearing. She felt like she had turned into a small rabbit that was ensnared in a hunter's trap. Chapter 42. Kiss her. Kiss her. Kiss her. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Luo Chenxi licked her lips anxiously. That small action of hers broke the final strand of sensibility in Mui Chen's mind. His only thought now was, kiss her. Kiss her. Kiss her. He let the D***ned woman seduce him this way once again. He had enough of this. As she watched his handsome face approach hers gradually, the emergency bells in Luo Chenxi's heart went off and warned her to flee subconsciously. However, her body could not move at all, as if she was trapped by a magic spell. In fact, she had even raised her chin subconsciously. "Daddy, why haven't both of you got into the car?" All of a sudden, a childish voice was heard. It sounded confused. Suddenly distracted, Luo Chenxi gave Mui Chen's face a slap before shoving him to the side. Then, she struggled free from him in a flurry of panic. Mui Chen was also stunned for a moment by Tang Tang's sudden appearance. He did not manage to react to the situation in time. By the time he recovered from the surprise, he discovered that the wicked woman in his arm had already slipped away. On top of that, she seemed to have slapped him earlier. Luo Chenxi had done that completely out of instinct. She was only trying to push him away, but it was already too late when she came to realize that she had pushed his face instead of his body. She took a glance at Mui Chen secretly and saw his stormy expression. Her heart was pounding anxiously. Oh no, oh no, oh no. There was a saying that one should not strike a person's face. Moreover, it was such a handsome face. Mui Chen was an emotionally unstable person. She wondered if he would seize the opportunity to beat her up for this. "Mississippi. Why haven't you come home for such a long time today? I miss you." Someone tugged at the hem of her skirt just as she was overwhelmed with anxiety. Luo Chenxi lowered her head to see the little dumpling looking at her with sad, puffed up cheeks. Instantly, her eyes lit up. Oh, right, she had Tang Tang as her protective talisman. She hastily bent over and welcomed the little dumpling. "I miss you too." The little dumpling was overjoyed at once upon hearing Luo Chenxi's reply. She blinked her huge eyes and threw herself into the woman's arms. Then, she hugged Luo Chenxi's neck and gave her a kiss on her cheek ferociously. "Miss, I want a kiss." She pressed her face to Luo Chenxi and demanded for a kiss. Luo Chenxi leaned forward and gave the little dumpling a kiss, feeling like her heart was about to melt. Tang Tang was so obedient and adorable. She was so cute that Luo Chenxi almost forgot that she had such a nasty daddy. She picked up the small protective talisman in a haste and opened the back door of the sports car. Then, she took a seat and was about to close the door conveniently. However, she gave the door a tug and found that the door still did not budge. In the next second, Mui Chen followed suit and got into the sports car. He sat right next to her closely, much to her bewilderment. "You drive." Mui Chen darted a glance at her and spoke indifferently. Before his voice faded away, the Aston Martin began moving at once. Luo Chenxi had just noticed that someone was sitting in the driver's seat in front. Mui Chen was not the driver. The situation was getting worse. She thought that she would be safe as soon as she got into the sports car, but she did not expect that. Mui Chen turned his head to the side and looked at her with a deep gaze. His meaningful gaze made Luo Chenxi's heart pound rapidly, so she hugged the little dumpling tighter. "Hey, Mui Chen, what are you trying to do? Tang Tang is here, and so is the driver." "Driver?" Mui Chen darted a cold look at Zhuofeng sitting in front. Zhuofeng stopped himself from secretly glancing back through the rearview mirror. "President, I didn't see anything." He pressed a button immediately and rolled up the partition board that separated the front seat from the back. At present, Zhuofeng was shocked beyond comparison. He did not expect the young master to leave early for the first time since he had taken over the company for many years. Furthermore, he had done that so that he could pick his wife up. The young master had always paid little to no attention to the young mistress. In fact, he had not even allowed her to meet the young lady Mu. Everyone always thought that the young master loathed the young mistress very much. Nonetheless, what did he just witness today? The young master could not refrain from picking the young mistress up on a busy street. Had it not been for the young lady Mu suddenly getting down from the car, they would have been about to kiss. Only a couple with a very good relationship would kiss each other on a busy street. Could they have all misunderstood the young master? Chapter 43. What should I do if the little protective talisman is not useful? Waiting online. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The partition rose up slowly and blocked the view of Special Assistant Manager Zhuofeng. Luo Chenxi became even more anxious. Mu Yichen was seated there quietly. He did not move or speak, but he exuded a powerful sense of oppression toward her. She wondered if her little protective talisman was capable of protecting her. Meanwhile, Tang Tang's soft voice was heard in the spacious, silent car. "Miss, I can't breathe anymore." Luo Chenxi suddenly felt a pushing force radiating from her chest. She lowered her head to take a look just in time to see Tang Tang pushing away from her with a hurt expression. Tang Tang's small face was flushing scarlet. Her huge eyes even looked teary and she looked extremely piteous. Luo Chenxi had been too nervous earlier, so she had hugged Tang Tang a little too tightly. In a rush, Luo Chenxi loosened her grip and looked down to check on the little dumpling. "I'm sorry, Tang Tang. Are you hurt on any part of your body?" The little dumpling shook her head. She took a seat by Luo Chenxi's side while still holding her arm. Luo Chenxi examined Tang Tang for a moment to ensure that she was all right. To her relief, the girl was unhurt. She felt a probing gaze on herself, so her entire body shivered once instantly. I wasn't trying to bully Tang Tang on purpose." She almost made a child cry and was caught red-handed by the child's father. "It was an accident," she attempted to explain herself. "What should I do when the little protective talisman isn't useful? It's also causing all sorts of problems. How sad." "Humph, stop pretending as if I'm bullying you," Mu Yichen sneered after taking a sidelong glance at her. "Isn't that the case?" Luo Chenxi exclaimed in her heart. She dared not say that out loud, so she could only give a forced laugh and frantically searched for a topic of conversation. "Young Master Mu, how come you're so free today to purposely come? Stop changing the topic of conversation. Where's the item? Why haven't you taken it out?" Mu Yichen interrupted her in his cold voice. Luo Chenxi was stunned for a moment. "What item?" "The item that Shengyu gave you." Mu Yichen's gaze swept across her while he had an impatient expression. "You said he didn't give you a piece of jewelry. How can I trust you without evidence? Take it out and show me. If you don't do it, I'll do it myself." How could a man be so arrogant? Luo Chenxi felt like stomping on Mu Yichen again as she stared at his egotistical expression. However, she thought about how she was confined in such a small space with him. She only had the little dumpling by her side that could not offer any assistance other than looking adorable. Therefore, she took the jewelry box out obediently and opened it for Mu Yichen. The jewelry box was exquisitely designed. It was encrusted with a ring of very small diamond chips as decoration around the box. In comparison, the brooch placed in the center of the box appeared to be less sophisticated. The butterfly brooch that looked extremely magnificent under the T-shaped stage light was actually cut out from cardboard and folded into shape by Luo Chenxi. The surface was painted evenly with mixed coloring before it was covered with a reflective plastic sheet, then glued with cheap decorative diamonds. Even though it had an extremely breathtaking effect at the fashion show, in reality, its manufacturing cost was less than $20. Moreover, it looked utterly unattractive up close. How is this considered a brooch? How can it be displayed in a fashion show? Mu Yichen frowned. His tone of speech sounded doubtful. He insulted her professionalism once again. This could not be tolerated anymore. Luo Chenxi said in rage, "How is this unworthy of being in a fashion show? Not only precious jewels can be used in a fashion show. The main focus is the design. Do you understand what design is?" Forget it. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. She took her phone out and logged on to Weibo. The Weibo website had already boiled over with enthusiasm. Every corner of the site was plastered with news regarding the fashion show from this afternoon. Luo Chenxi clicked on a photo casually and showed it to Mu Yichen. See that? This is the butterfly pinned on by Xinxin's dress. Mu Yichen lowered his head and took a glance. Radiance flickered in his eyes for a moment. Humph, you know nothing, she muttered softly. Then, she closed the jewelry box casually and was about to keep it. Meanwhile, she suddenly felt the weight of the box lifted from her hand as Mu Yichen took away the jewelry box immediately. Chapter 44. No matter how cheap, it is still a gift from a wild man outside. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, what are you doing? Luo Chenxi was stunned for a moment before she reacted to the situation. She pounced forward hastily in an attempt to grab the jewelry box. Mu Yichen stuffed the tiny box right into the inner pocket of his suit while simultaneously spitting out a few words coldly. It's confiscated. Mu Yichen. You're robbing me. This is mine. Who gave you the right to take it away? Give it back to me right now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Luo Chenxi was very anxious. It was the keepsake from her participation in a grand fashion show for the first time. Who gave this jerk the right to take what was hers? Mu Yichen was completely unaffected by her. As Mrs. Mu, is it justifiable for you to accept another man's gift? How many times have I told you? This is only a keepsake. Moreover, you said it yourself too that this item isn't valuable. Why would an affair partner give me such a cheap gift? She failed to grab it after a few attempts, so she could only try to persuade the man with great effort. Mu Yichen scoffed. No matter how cheap it is, it's still a gift from a wild man outside. You're not allowed to keep it. Do you still remember my warning to you? You've married into the Mu family, so you must abide by the Mu family's rules. The young mistress of the Mu family isn't allowed to accept another man's gift. You're not allowed to accept anything from another man. Luo Chenxi widened her eyes in surprise. Why is there such an unreasonable rule that I've never heard of before? Why can't I accept a gift from a friend? It's because I'm your husband. Also, haven't you heard the saying of just because you don't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist? Remember that. Mu Yichen cast a sidelong glance condescendingly at her. Perhaps, this rule did not exist in the past, but it did, starting from today. Moreover, he would ensure that this family rule was fully and thoroughly implemented. Luo Chenxi almost vomited blood from rage. You're an egotistical maniac. I won't do it. Give me back the brooch now. It's mine. She could not care about the little dumpling by her side anymore, so she threw herself upon Mu Yichen's body right away. It was useless to talk sense into him, so the only thing she could do was to snatch it. Luo Chenxi shoved at his chest strenuously and pinned him against the back of the seat. She stretched out her hand and was about to remove Mu Yichen's jacket. Earlier, she saw him placing the jewelry box into the inner pocket of the jacket. She turned over the jacket and was about to reach the box when her wrist was grabbed by the man's huge palm all of a sudden. It seems like you enjoy trapping me very much, huh? Why do you use the same move every time? Since you can't outspeak me, are you just going to remove my clothes then? Are you blind? Who wants to remove your clothes anyway? I'm just trying to get my brooch. Before she could finish her sentence, Mu Yichen suddenly exerted his strength and pulled her entire body into his arm while his other hand clasped her wrists tightly and twisted them firmly behind her back. Luo Chenxi was literally sitting on Mu Yichen's lap in her current position. She had no choice but to lean her breasts on the man's bulky, muscular chest. Her cheeks blushed scarlet at once as she began to struggle. Mu Yichen, what are you doing? Let go of me. Mu Chen's gaze shifted downward slowly and landed upon her loosened collar that had come open during the dispute earlier. Her splendor was fully exposed to his sight without obstruction. He could see the speckles of red marks on her chest and seemed to recall leaving those on her a few days ago. You were trying to take off my clothes. I'm cooperating with you. Why aren't you satisfied yet, huh, woman? Mu Chen stared at the wicked woman's flushing face from rage. The corners of his lips curved upward. However, it was at this exact moment when... Hiss! Mu Chen suddenly drew in a cold breath. He lowered his head incredulously and glared at the crystal-clear bite marks on the back of his palm. Daddy, your bullying Mississippi daddy is a bad man. I'm fighting you. I'm fighting you. Tang Tang loosened her jaw and leaped up as she swung her little fists and pounded Mu Chen's arm. She grabbed Luo Chenxi's arm after he let go of the latter. Then, she looked at her father with a vigilant expression on her small face. Chapter 45. This is the young mistress. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Mu Chen almost could not catch his breath from the boiling rage inside him. His little princess had actually hit him. She had even called him a bad man. He felt like his heart had been pierced by 1,000 arrows. Moreover, the two girls were hugging each other tightly and they looked at him as if they were looking at a pervert. They were shuddering in fear as if they were the mother and daughter from a decent family that had been bullied by a local tyrant. What had he done wrong? He only wanted to give his wife a kiss. Ever since this wicked woman got married into the Mu family, his status in the little princess's heart had suffered a disastrous decline. Compared to young Master Mu's gloominess, Luo Chenxi's mood was akin to the wide expanse of clear, sunlit sky. Her Tang Tang was awesome. She knew how to protect her. She took back her comment about the little dumpling knowing nothing but looking adorable earlier. Luo Chenxi held the little dumpling and gave her smooth chubby cheeks kisses. She was completely oblivious to Mu Chen's constipated like gloomy expression. It did not take long before the sports car stopped moving. Young master, young mistress, we've already arrived at the old family home. Zhuo Feng stood by the car door respectfully and watched as the president's family of 3 get down from the car in succession. He was constantly complaining in his heart. He thought that the young master had suddenly ordered him to raise the partition so that he could have some intimacy with the young mistress. However, the young master was red with rage while the young mistress was ghastly pale now. The young lady Mu's small face was still pink and chubby. Everyone in the family of 3 had a different color on their faces. What was happening? Luo Chenxi got down from the car. She looked around everywhere in surprise. I thought we were going home. Where are we now? Grandmother called me today and asked me to take you to have dinner at her place. Please behave yourself later. Watch your words and mind your language. I trust that you don't need me to remind you about that, do I? Mu Chenxi did not manage to savor the taste of his wife and was beaten by his little princess, which resulted in his foul mood. His tone of speech sounded much colder than before. However, Luo Chenxi did not notice that. She responded in surprise, what? I'm meeting your grandmother. But, why didn't you say so earlier? I haven't prepared anything. How can I meet your grandmother? Upon hearing that, Mu Chen felt like he was in a worse mood. He had tried to call Luo Chenxi a few times but did not manage to get through to her. Now that he thought about it, the wicked woman must have been spending time with Xingyu then. What's there to prepare anyway? You're already married into the Mu family. Do you still need to prepare before you meet our senior family members? Moreover, I thought you're very good at flattering grandmother. Otherwise, grandmother would never have forced me to marry you. You're truly capable. Mu Chen elaborated in a calm and composed manner before he took her hand and tugged her in the direction of the villa. Luo Chenxi trotted along to catch up to him. Her heart was pounding wildly beyond her control. The crucial part of this situation was that she was not Luo Qinxin. It was easy for her to feign her identity before Mu Yichen, Mu Weiwei, and the rest because they loathed Luo Qinxin very much from the start. However, Grandmother Mu was the keystone that had facilitated their marriage according to Mu Yichen's description. It meant that Grandmother Mu was rather fond of Luo Qinxin, was she not? In these circumstances, it was highly possible for her to blow her cover. The information given to her by Luo Ongua did not mention the relationship between Grandmother Mu and Luo Qinxin at all. What should she do then? However, they had already entered the villa before she even had time to consider it properly. Young master, young lady, and also. Sister Chen's gaze landed upon Luo Chenxi. This is the young mistress, said Mu Yichen indifferently. Luo Chenxi could not help taking a glance at him. On their first nuptial night, he had claimed that he would never acknowledge her as the young mistress of the Mu family. Chapter 46. It's different because it's her own daughter. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Sister Chen said in a hurry, yes, young Master Mu. The mistress is strolling in the courtyard. She was just talking about you earlier. Mu Yichen nodded. We'll head over there now. At the courtyard, an old woman with a head full of gray hair was seated in a wheelchair. The maid pushed the wheelchair so that the old woman could take a stroll. The little dumpling was excited as soon as she saw Grandmother Mu. She shoved Luo Chenxi away and scrambled away to run toward Grandmother Mu. Great-grandmother, great-grandmother. I'm here to pay you a visit. The little dumpling threw herself onto Grandmother Mu's legs at once. Grandmother Mu bent over in an attempt to pick up the little dumpling. Upon seeing that, Mu Yichen stepped forward quickly and picked Tang Tang up in advance. Grandmother, the little girl has gotten fatter recently. You can't lift her up anymore. Grandmother Mu rolled her eyes at him as she said in dismay, who's calling my little precious girl fat? You must be thinking that I'm so old that one of my feet has stepped into the coffin so I can't carry her anymore, right? Mu Yichen choked on his words at once. Grandmother, I didn't mean that. He did not manage to appease Grandmother Mu while the little dumpling was displeased as well. She twisted about in his arms. Mu Yichen smacked Tang Tang's back softly in a rush. Behave yourself. Great-grandmother said that I'm not fat. The little dumpling glared at her father. She turned her head to the side and stretched out her chubby little arms toward Luo Chenxi on the other side. I don't want daddy anymore. I want miss to carry me. Mu Yichen watched helplessly as the little princess threw herself into Luo Chenxi's arms. Alright then, so the little girl cared about her looks more than anything else. She took it upon herself to choose the little dresses that she wore to the kindergarten on the usual days. It seemed like she was very offended by the word fat. Why was it so difficult for him to appease the women in his family from old to young? Grandmother Mu took a glance at Mu Chenxi and her eyes lit up at once. Is this your newly wedded wife? Beautiful, she's very beautiful, just like my Tang Tang. Quick, come over here and let me take a look at you. Mu Yichen was stunned for a moment. He did not expect that the grandmother would not recognize the wicked woman. He was still under the assumption that Luo Qinxin had certainly played some tricks to charm Grandmother Mu. However, judging from the situation now, it seemed like the situation was not as he had imagined. On the other hand, Luo Chenxi was relieved. Even though she had no idea what was happening, she knew that her secret would not be blown at the very least. She hastily walked over and called out in a sweet voice, Grandmother. Grandmother Mu held her hand and examined every part of her. There was no need to mention how pleased Grandmother Mu was. What a fine lady. Look at how close she is to Tang Tang. It's different because it's her own daughter. Luo Chenxi was blushing ever so slightly from Grandmother Mu's comment. She dreamt of having such an adorable daughter like Tang Tang, but Tang Tang was not her own daughter. Grandmother Mu spoke unceasingly, when I asked you to take your fiancé with you in the past, you refused to do so. Why are you being so obedient today? Is it because you know that I'm right? I had a master read your fortune to me before. You have to be with Tang Tang's birth mother in your life. Only then the Mu family will remain prosperous. You refused to believe that and only agreed when I was almost dying. Mu Yichen could not help frowning. Grandmother, why are you talking about death? You are recovering very well. You think too much. It's too windy here. Let me push your wheelchair back to the house. As he was speaking, he sent the maid away and pushed the wheelchair on his own to head to the villa. At the same time, he turned around and took a glance at Luo Chenxi, who followed closely behind him with Tang Tang in her arms. Grandmother Mu continued to speak along the way. Chen, you shouldn't reject the notion of destiny. The old ancestors' words make sense. Hey, rascal, don't you stop speaking to me, huh? Upon noticing that Mu Yichen disregarded her, she turned and looked at Luo Chenxi. My granddaughter. Law, do you think I'm right? Chapter 47. I kept it specially for my granddaughter. Law, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Luo Chenxi was still smirking to herself secretly when she saw that Mu Yichen was rendered speechless by Grandmother Mu's conversation. She was caught off guard when Grandmother Mu suddenly changed her target of conversation. She choked on her words as well. How was she going to answer the question? She was actually given another fatal question again. Grandmother Mu had found some fortune-teller master from somewhere that declared that Mu Yichen had to get married to Tang Tang's birth mother, yet her sister Luo Chenxi had already passed away. The master did not even manage to read this destiny, so it was clear as day that the fortune-teller was a swindler without a doubt. Could she answer that Grandmother Mu was right despite it going against her conscience? Bnoel.m as she felt Grandmother Mu's kind gaze on her from one side and Mu Yichen's threatening gaze through his squinted eyes on the other side, Luo Chenxi was tormented by her conscience. At last, she hugged the little dumpling tightly and announced aloud, "It's getting cold. Tang Tang's clothes aren't thick enough and she'll get a cold. I'm going to take her inside first." The little dumpling was wrapped in a tight bundle of warm clothing while being dumbstruck with bewilderment. "Miss, I'm not cold. Where was the promised mother and daughter bond?" Luo Chenxi snuggled the straying little protective talisman closely to herself and stopped Tang Tang from continuing her speech. Then, jogging with Tang Tang in her arms, she ran into the villa. Grandmother Mu and Mu Yichen were speechless. Then, Grandmother Mu said, "Grandson, why do I feel like my granddaughter. Law isn't very fond of you, huh?" The corners of Mu Yichen's lips twitched. "Grandmother, you're mistaken. Your granddaughter. Law loves me very much. She was practically crying and begging to be married to me. Ever since Grandfather Mu passed away 5 years ago, not only was Grandmother Mu's health condition deteriorating, but her mind was also getting more confused each day and she began to turn almost childlike. As a result, everyone hid the truth about the series of Luo Chenxi's impressive deeds from Grandmother Mu. Mu Yichen consoled himself that it was normal for Grandmother Mu to have a misunderstanding earlier because of her lack of understanding concerning the inside information. By the time he pushed his grandmother back to the villa, Luo Chenxi and the little dumpling were already seated on the sofa properly. Due to all the fights and disputes earlier, the little dumpling's braids had already loosened into a mess, so Luo Chenxi gave her a cute top bun with agile movements. The little dumpling touched her hair and smiled joyously. She gave Luo Chenxi a peck as a token of appreciation. Grandmother Mu was delighted watching them. She instructed Sister Chen, "Go upstairs quickly and bring down the box that I've prepared earlier." Sister Chen did as she was ordered. She returned soon with a simple, unsophisticated-looking jewelry box. Grandmother Mu waved her hand to signal Luo Chenxi to come to her. Then, she removed a dark green jade bangle from the jewelry box and put it on Luo Chenxi's wrist. "This is a gift from me for our first meeting." Luo Chenxi said in astonishment, "Grandmother, this is too precious. I can't accept it." The clarity of the jade bangle showed that it was of high grade. Grandmother Mu had collected it as part of her treasure trove. Luo Chenxi could figure out how precious it was just by analyzing it. She wanted to remove the bangle and return it to grandmother, yet for some unknown reason, the bangle was stuck on her wrist. There was no way she could remove it. What was happening? Grandmother had obviously put it on easily earlier, had she not? In a panic, she tugged the bangle strenuously a few times, but she did not manage to remove it. On the contrary, the friction turned her wrist red. She bit her lower lip and was about to pull harder when a huge hand grabbed her wrist. That's enough. You shouldn't decline a senior's gift. Since grandmother has given it to you, you can keep it, Mu Yichen spoke with a deep voice. But. No buts. Mu Yichen's gaze swept across the redness on her fair wrist which looked unusually striking. Grandmother Mu patted Luo Chenxi's hand. That's right. I kept it especially for my granddaughter. Law. This is the precious treasure that has been passed down in our Mu family for generations. Chapter 48. Love rival of all the women in the entire country. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luo Chenxi felt even less courageous to take it upon listening to Grandmother Mu's remark. She was not Grandmother Mu's granddaughter. Law though. She had it all figured out earlier. She would do anything she could to find a reason and divorce Mu Yichen as soon as Lu Wenjun's heart transplant surgery was completed. Otherwise, was she going to spend the rest of her life disguised as someone else and be with a man that she had no feelings for? Mu Yichen noticed the hesitation within Luo Chenxi. Radiance flickered in his eyes as he grabbed her wrist so firmly that she could not torture the poor jade bangle anymore. Aren't you going to show some respect for grandmother? Luo Chenxi looked at him in astonishment. Mu Yichen should be the person that opposed her keeping the bangle the most, should he not? Grandmother Mu looked hurt. You refuse to take my jade bangle. Is it because you don't like me and refuse to be my granddaughter? Law. I knew it. One of my feet had already stepped into. No, grandmother. I like you very much and I love the jade bangle too. It's exquisite. Thanks, grandmother. Luo Chenxi hastily interrupted her when she saw grandmother begin to bemoan her fate again. Grandmother Mu's expression changed drastically in a second and she smiled. I knew that you're a good child. Luo Chenxi widened her eyes in surprise. What just happened? Grandmother seemed like she was about to cry earlier, did she not? Alright, it's getting late. Why don't you leave after having dinner with me? Sister Chen, is dinner ready? Said Grandmother Mu. Sister Chen smiled and said from the side, it's ready. Everything is ready. The mistress has specially instructed me to make strawberry pudding for the young lady. It's ready as well. Strawberry pudding. The little dumpling's eyes lit up. She spread her short legs and ran toward the kitchen. Luo Chenxi felt concerned, so she followed along. Grandmother Mu's gaze swept across to her grandson. She said in exasperation as if she was disappointed with him, look, she refuses to keep the bangle because she doesn't approve of you. You're useless, boy. How would you have ever gotten married if not for my help? Mu Yichen was dumbfounded. He came in first as the choice of most handsome man in the media voting after all. How did he turn into an unmarketable Chinese cabbage in his grandmother's eyes? At dinner, Tang Tang gave a portion of her favorite pudding to Luo Chenxi once again. Grandmother Mu was constantly asking about Luo Chenxi's favorite food as well. She even promised to cook it for her the next time she came for a visit, overwhelming her with affection. Halfway during dinner, Grandmother Mu became exhausted. After all, she had only recently recovered from a severe illness. Luo Chenxi and Mu Yichen sent her back to her room to rest before they bade farewell and departed for home. The little dumpling had been running about for the entire afternoon, so she fell asleep on Luo Chenxi's lap as soon as they got into the car. She was still making a sucking motion with her mouth as if she was still tasting the strawberry pudding earlier. The night was slightly cold across the window of the car. It was especially quiet in the car. There was only the sound of Tang Tang's even breathing. For some unknown reason, Luo Chenxi suddenly felt anxious. She could not refrain from turning her head to look at the man by her side. Coincidentally, Mu Yichen was watching her too. They gazed into each other's eyes. She saw something flicker in his eyes that were as deep as ink for a moment, but she failed to grasp it because it lasted for just a moment. Luo Chenxi's face was glowing with a faint blush. Mu Yichen looked gorgeous from her angle. Aside from his perfect facial features, she could not even see his pores despite being so close to him. He had perfect complexion too. Despite his bad temper, he truly lived up to the reputation of being the best-looking man in the country. On top of that, he was wealthy and handsome. Had it not been for the awkward relationship between them, she bet she would become the love rival of all the women in the entire country just for being in the same car with Mu Yichen. Luo Chenxin. Mu Yichen spoke all of a sudden. She looked at him in puzzlement. Mu Yichen pursed his lips. Grandmother is getting dementia. Don't take her words seriously. Chapter 49. He was her husband exclusively for now. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The flirtatious atmosphere that was felt in the air earlier dispersed off instantaneously with his statement. Luo Chenxi sat upright. Noted. She suddenly felt that the night was rather cold all of a sudden. The air felt stuffy despite her sitting in an air-conditioned car. Mu Yichen looked at her rather small, astonished face and continued to speak. Grandmother seems to be in quite a healthy state now, but she was seriously ill last year. Had it not been for her timely rescue, she would have already passed away by now. As a result, everyone in the family goes along with her and we don't argue with her. However, whatever you told Grandmother Mu today and you making me keep the jade bangle was all to appease her and you didn't actually agree to it, right? Luo Chenxi interrupted Mu Yichen before he could finish his sentence. The words had already reached Mu Yichen's lips originally. However, the wicked woman said it first. He was shocked ever so slightly and felt uneasy in his heart without reason. He felt as if he had said something wrong. However, he suppressed the thought quickly and continued, "It's good that you understand. Actually, Grandmother feigned her sickness and forced me to marry you. I knew it from the start. However, she isn't going to live for long although she doesn't even know it yet. I married you to please my grandmother and I'm very satisfied with your performance today. As long as you can continue the act properly, I won't treat you shabbily even if we were to get a divorce later on." Mu Yichen felt complicated emotions arise after seeing how Grandmother Mu and Tang Tang had a very good relationship with this wicked woman like they were a real family. The woman's acting skills exceeded his expectations. For that one short moment, he had almost believed that everything was real. Still, he understood Luo Chenxin's true self more than anybody else. He could never allow her to take this relationship seriously and he could not allow that himself to do so either. After hearing Mu Yichen's words, Luo Chenxi calmed down completely. That was right. What was she thinking earlier? Mu Yichen could be the hottest man in the country, but how was that related to her? Even if he was her husband exclusively, for now, it was only for namesake. One of them did it to appease his grandmother while the other did it to make money and save her mother's life. They were both doing it out of their own motives. Luo Chenxi nodded. Understood. I get it, really. Don't worry. I'll cooperate with you properly and I won't bear any improper thoughts either. The wicked woman nodded with such determination without the slightest hesitation. Mu Yichen almost choked on his pent-up anger. Did she not have the slightest passionate thoughts of him? Luo Chenxi thought of something. Oh right, your grandmother wanted to give the jade bangle to her granddaughter. Law. It's inappropriate for me to keep it here, so I'm going to remove it and give it back to you. As she was speaking, she stretched out her hand to remove the jade bangle. However, he stopped her as soon as she moved. That's enough. It's fine as long as you remember my words. The jade bangle was given to you by my grandmother. Am I that petty that I'd take it away from you? Mu Yichen's tone of speech sounded more and more rigid. Luo Chenxi hesitated for a moment before she responded, all right then. I can't take it off now anyway. Let me try and see if I can remove it with soap water when we're home. I said that you can keep the jade bangle. Can't you understand me? Mu Yichen's voice suddenly went up to a higher pitch. He felt angry for no reason and was beyond agitated. Luo Chenxi was startled. Why are you being so fierce? Chapter 50. Why isn't it hard? Haven't you tried it before? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 50. Why isn't it hard? Haven't you tried it before? Both of them had obviously achieved a mutual consensus, so why did he have to put on a long face? She wanted to return the jade bangle to him out of concern for him. How dare he talk to her so fiercely? With his bad temper, no wonder Grandmother Mu felt that he would never get a wife. If she really was Mu Yichen's girlfriend, he would have already become a single man with his tantrum earlier. Mu Yichen also realized that he had reacted abnormally earlier. He always had good self-control in the past and was even described as being deep beyond fathomable at work. Why was he frequently losing his temper when he was with the wicked woman before his eyes? Moreover, he had no idea why he lost his temper so easily. The woman was very tactful and cooperative. Was that not a good thing? He inhaled a deep breath. I wasn't being fierce. Don't talk about the jade bangle anymore. I won't talk about it then. Luo Chenxi had enough of this man's unstable moods and outbursts. Instantly, she turned her head to the side and refused to speak to him anymore. If this were to continue, she would die from anger sooner or later. Neither she nor Mu Yichen spoke. The car sank into a ghastly silence. It did not take long before they arrived at the Mu family villa. Both of them stretched out their arms simultaneously toward Tang Tang, who was deep asleep, in an attempt to pick her up. Their arms knocked into each other's in the air. Ouch! Luo Chenxi could not refrain from gasping softly after being knocked over by Mu Yichen's muscular, strong arm. She furrowed her brows. Is the man's body made of steel? Why is it that hard? It hurts. Why is it hard? Haven't you tried it before? The man's deep, magnetic voice was heard coming from above her head. Then, Luo Chenxi realized that she had said it out loud instead of thinking to herself. On the other hand, the man's reply was, "You're a scoundrel. Stay further away from me." Luo Chenxi clenched her teeth in rage and glared at him ferociously before she picked Tang Tang up and left. He was just reminding her to behave herself earlier, but he was molesting her with his words now. What kind of person did he think she was? Mu Yichen looked at her departing silhouette. He sat in the car and smoked a cigarette quietly before he got down from the car. Luo Chenxi had already sent Tang Tang back to her room. She walked out of the room just in time to see Mu Yichen walking into the house from the corridor of the second floor. His tall, bulky, straight figure was wrapped in a long trench coat with a checkered pattern. He looked elegant and outstandingly swanky. All of a sudden, he looked up to take a glance at the bewildered woman. Luo Chenxi suddenly recovered from her surprise and remembered that they were a newly wedded couple that had been sleeping together for the past 2 nights. However, it was their first nuptial night on the day before yesterday. They had both been drugged and spent the night together for Tang Tang yesterday. There was no need for them to share a bed tonight anymore. So, I'm taking the guest room then, Luo Chenxi said. It's okay. Mu Yichen shook his head. You can take the master bedroom. I have a place to rest in my study room anyway. Oh. Really? After all, it was the Mu family's house. On the other hand, she had always been a shameless woman that had forced her way into the marriage in Mu Yichen's eyes. In the case of taking separate bedrooms, she should be the one chased out of the room, should she not? In response, she heard a loud bang. Mu Yichen slammed the door of the study that separated them completely. Immediately, she pursed her lips. How dare the man throw a tantrum again? Was there something wrong with him? She was obviously the victim here. What was there for Mu Yichen to be angry about? This man was really impossible. However, the Mu family's master bedroom was the most luxurious out of all the rooms in the house. Since Mu Yichen was willing to part with it, she would accept it gladly too. She would never torment herself about this. She returned to the master bedroom and the first thing she did was to lock the door. Then, she took a long, warm bath in the super-huge bathtub, blew dry her hair and walked to the front of the wardrobe. After that, she picked out the thinnest pajamas and changed into it. She was sleeping alone, so she would do whatever she wanted. Luo Chenxi yawned before she lay on the bed and fell sound asleep not long after. Around midnight, an abrupt, soft crack was heard at the door.